One corner of this political smackdown is the guy you just saw, Steve Bannon. He's aligned with the Laura Loomers of the world, and they insist that American jobs are for American workers, including these jobs. In the other corner, the other MAGA titans, people like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, who at one time worked in this country on an H-1B visa. They maintain that an American emphasis on, their words, quote, mediocrity over excellence, end quote, has created a need for additional high-skilled labor. And you can only get them from other countries, and for that you need these visas. So Musk went so far as to call some Trump supporters, quote, contemptible fools, end quote, over the matter. Things got so heated that Trump himself had to mediate. He weighed in the New York Post, saying that he, quote, has always liked these visas. Whether it settles the issue or not, or whether this is even the visa that he thinks it is unclear, but it is a sign of what's to come. David Brooks points out in the New York Times this, quote, this is not a discrete one-off dispute. This is the kind of core tension you get in your party when you do as Trump has done, taken a dynamic free market capitalist party and infused it with protective, backward-looking reactionary philosophy. We're going to see this kind of dispute also when it comes to economic regulation, trade, technology policy, labor policy, housing policy, and so on. It's also where we start the hour with some of our favorite experts and friends. Former chief Republican strategist and senior advisor to the Lincoln Project, Stuart Stevens, is here. Also joining us, professor of history at New York University, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, is back. And with me at the table for the hour, distinguished political scholar, professor at Princeton University, Eddie Glaude's here. Stuart Stevens, let me just start with the personalities. Love him or loathe him. Steve Bannon's the guy that went to jail for Donald Trump. I would never bet against Steve Bannon. I mean, just weigh in on the sort of brutality and the public nature of this very early, very vicious fight between Steve Bannon and Elon Musk.
Yeah, it's absolutely delicious to watch, and were it not so impactful for the future of the country, you could laugh at it. Bannon is a guy who has defined himself as a thug, and thugs must do thuggish things. I think that Elon Musk has no idea what he's getting into when he gets in a fight with Steve Bannon over this. And, you know, under all of this sort of, I suspect Bannon thinks about this. There's a very good chance, there's been a lot of reporting that Elon Musk was not a student when he got a visa. And when he got his went through his process of becoming a naturalized citizen, that he put false information on that document. If that's true, that is grounds for revoking the citizenship. It happens all the time. And under the Trump, that would mean deporting Musk and his children. You know, you could make a case that one of the reasons Musk is so obsessed with immigration is because he knows this. I think that in the heart and soul of MAGA out there, I'm with you. I would not bet against Steve Bannon.
I want to deal with the substance of this, and I promise to do that. But because for Trump, it's never about the substance, I want to stay with the leading men in Trump's life with you, Stuart Stevens. The idea that Elon Musk is the alpha only exists in a world where Trump can be bought. And what's so amazing to me is that Trumpism has always been transactional for Trump, but we've never seen the public display of someone else getting to grift off Trump's presidency. Elon Musk feels like the beta for that, right? A real test case. How do you think that's going to go?
Well, you know, what Elon Musk has discovered very quickly, he's a very smart guy, is what every foreign intelligence agency discovered about Donald Trump. If you pet him, he'll follow you home. And that's all he cares about. He needs approval from people like Elon Musk. Elon Musk, in some ways, is what he pretends to be. Elon Musk is the wealthiest person in the world. This is what Donald Trump would like to be. So getting approval from that person, that means a lot to Donald Trump. It goes back to, you know, he's the guy from Queens. It's a true statement. He's the guy from Queens who's out on bail. Of course he wants approval from the richest man in the world. And Steve Bannon, he's already had these fights with Steve Bannon before. He called him a slob, which he is, and he's a weird guy. But Bannon has proven to be very, very loyal. And I don't think at the end of the day that Musk is going to be that loyal to Trump. He cares about his own business, and he has a lot of other interest in this besides just being close to Donald Trump.
Ruth, again, I do promise to get to the substance of it. We've spent a lot of time on immigration policy. It promises to be one of the central policy divides. But there are so many layers to this fight. And I thought about all of our conversations about American autocracy and the oligarchy. And Steve Bannon is almost, there feels like a piece in the Bannon grenade that he threw at Musk's face that is anti-oligarchy, that wants to pull MAGA back to, I think, what Bannon views as its roots. How do you see this public feud?
Well, first of all, we know that many autocrats follow something called divide and rule. And if feuds break out among the top people, they use them to their benefit so that, the underlings fight it out and they remain supreme. So Trump may have sided, one side or the other, but I'm sure part of him likes this. The other thing is, yes, we can study these schisms and these divides for what they expose, what they reveal about the contradictions and hypocrisies of this coming administration. When Mike Collins, a MAGA stalwart, said, oh, well, if we have, deficiencies in our skilled tech sector, we shouldn't solve it through immigration, we should solve it through education. But we know that they're going to be decimating the Department of Education. They're not interested, whether they're MAGA or Musk. They're not interested in improving the betterment of the American worker through education. They're interested in doing policies like privatization that we know from history are horrible for the average person. And the person who created jobs to lift up the American worker was President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris. So we can study these wars going on for what they reveal about the hypocrisy of the administration that's about to take hold.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the study of MAGA is essential to defeat MAGA, right? And if you want to go to the country in 4 years with the political movement that defeats MAGA, you have to understand MAGA. And so to me, this is a story that is, as Stuart said, the personalities in conflict, you just can't look away, right? But the idea that one figure, and I think it's Bannon in this case, is trying to preserve something that to him as a MAGA enforcer is, I don't even know the vocabulary to use, precious. The anti-immigration view has to be pure. To be against these visas being offered is in direct conflict with Trump's core promise, which is of a robust economy. Because what Musk represents is that American businesses feel like they can't prosper and thrive without access to these visas. And again, the study of MAGA to be able to defeat it is understanding where the weak links are. This is clearly going to be one of them.
Well, I think this is a really important point, but it requires, I think, a bit of truth-telling about the Republican Party and its modern iteration. There's always been at least these three elements, these three tendencies: corporatist, libertarian, and nativist.
Right, right.
And so what
Let me write that down, because this is okay,
so this is a really important point, right? In the sense that you've always had these three components, and Ronald Reagan was able to balance them in interesting sorts of ways. And so what we have here is the plutocrat, right, in Elon Musk, right? Greed, pulling, kind of advancing its interest, and you have right-wing populism.
Right.
Right-wing populism that sometimes is expressed in terms of an emphasis in the American worker, but it takes the form of xenophobia, it takes the form of nativism, it takes the form of hatreds. So we have the collision of greed and hatred right in front of us, right? And that's at the heart of Trumpism, of MAGAism. It's always been greed, always been selfish. It's always been hatred. And now it's in full view.
What's so amazing about your articulation is it's like two tarantulas in a bowl. There's nobody to root for, right? Because you're watching this like ugly collision where Musk is arguing for his own bottom line. Bannon is arguing for sort of the ideologies at the root of MAGA's sort of nativist underbelly. But what you have to study, I think, from the outside is what it exposes about the movement's vulnerabilities.
Oh, absolutely. And what you have is this interesting kind of convergence. You could have Robert Reich, former Secretary of Labor, right, actually agreeing with Bannon about the suspicion around H-1B visas because they're both concerned about the American worker from their various vantage points, right? But what's interesting about Bannon is that it carries forward this deep ugliness about who should be at the center of our imaginations, who we should care about. We don't need 5 million Indians coming to the country, right? So it carries forward. This is why it's right-wing populism as opposed to left-wing populism. And so part of what we have to do, as you rightly point out, is to understand the fissures, to understand the cracks, the fault lines, because they're going to come into view even more so as the corporatists pursue their interest, and everyday ordinary workers, whether they're white, black, green, or yellow, are going to take it on the chin.
I think, Stuart Stevens, it also reveals the ugliness of the opportunists in the Republican Party. There will be establishment Republicans who latch on to Musk in this fight because he wants what they want. But that doesn't make it benevolent.
Yeah, I think the usual currents of Trumpism are at play here. If there was, by some freak of nature, Swedish models were the best engineers in the world, and that's who really wanted to come here, instead of what they are assuming are going to be a bunch of non-whites, I think that probably Steve Bannon would be all for that, and so would Donald Trump. What Steve Bannon has to his advantage here is an emotional argument. Musk has an intellectual argument. So you can carry out the Bannon argument that is based upon fear. And MAGA is all based upon a zero-sum world. This idea, which has really been at the heart of the party that we used to belong to, and very much at the heart of definition of America, that you could expand, that you could more brings more. There's not a finite limit of resources. And that's absolutely true. When you look at the great tech companies in America, they're all benefiting from immigration on multiple levels. Steve Jobs' dad was Syrian. It is disturbing in one sense, and that Elon Musk is right here on the policy, which is sort of painful. But, there is no coherent theory of government, as we've said over and over.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a theory of government, you're back to exactly what you were saying, how one person feels at one moment when he wakes up. And that's a very difficult way to run the world's most powerful country.
Yeah, I mean, and Ruth, I think you hit the nail on the head, that Trump is reveling in all of it. And I guess what I want to do is make sure we don't cover the brink of a government shutdown as a story separate from the fight over H-1B visas. They're the same story. Trump doesn't believe in anything, and he's just weighing the power brokers in front of him. He didn't really care about shutting down the government. He didn't really care about politically decapitating Mike Johnson. I believe today threw him a lifeline until next week when he's mad at him again. Nothing matters. And I want to just show you what